The Enlightenment chases. Royalties of peace. We are stealing the storms back to peace that has no storm, while holding on to perfect peace. This is the 29th episode of the Golden Age podcast. March 18th of 2025 by Maris Free Lefan. Today, drawing attention onto the conflicts between the presidency and the House of Congress. The presidency and the Supreme Court. How can two powerful branches be against each other? And we, the people, must be pondering upon how to resolve this disruption. Is it about this present presidency, or is it about a long time unfolding disruption of failing to understand the purpose of creating the New World Order? What is this New World Order exactly? We are beginning to understand this New World Order was not just about making some paradise on earth and keeping it, but rather reaching the enlightenment perfect of the mind. The forefathers even called themselves enlightenment chasers to ensure we do not get confused of their living different nations, seeking for a place to set an example of what we are supposed to be fulfilling, being humans on earth, of reaching enlightenment. A cycle of life we have lived for 4.6 billions of years. To understand this pattern, it's not supposed to be a cycle, but rather a journey reaching its destination of none left behind. It's very sad to see the United States of America in this condition today. We might have expected a better strategy of resolving our weaknesses. Yes, we have the great schools. Harvard School of Law cannot be disgraced. Harvard School of Law has graduated great people. We can tell of how our forefathers feel, of how the president is operating. Not despising the experts to work with the modest, but rather demanding a resting time for the experts, a time of remediation, a time of reflection of how much hard work they've been doing. Like vanity, vanity, vanity. All under the sun is not vanity. It has a purpose, and we must be able to use this tool of the earth to reach that purpose of enlightenment perfect, of never falling back. When work is done, it's done. The high standards of living versus low standards in the USA is becoming outrageous. Leaving the United States of America in the hands of the descendants was to fulfill that place of equality, a place of civil rights, not like it has been in previous years and history of mankind. Leaving the United States of America in the hands of the descendants of the first forefathers was to establish a great mindset that grew over time, watching in other nations where we come from, of the misleading, guiding humanity, depriving others from their rights, not willingly, but of our weaknesses in a way. How do we dismantle this weakness? Is the question today. How do we resolve this battlefield between the rich and those living paycheck to paycheck? This is not a system the first forefathers were expecting. It is obvious that if we should have a constitution, we must know the goal of the constitution. So far, I realize that we have a constitution, but we do not know the goal. The constitution, like a care plan, the laws must have an end goal. This end goal is to reach enlightenment perfect. Not only about building a paradise. The paradise is only a symbol expressing work done. Like the star works expresses freedom, cannot be before freedom is accomplished. Fireworks expresses freedom, victory, and cannot be enabled before victory is reached. What has the president got to do with the cuts and increased tariffs? The cuts and increased tariffs are not caused by the president, but by an increase in number needing care that meets up to the standard of the United States of America. We cannot perish. This was not a nation meant to increase in number, but rather in joy, to demonstrate to the world the true purpose of our very first ancestors. Not trying to keep the earth after realizing of its instability, of even Mother Nature, questioning our living in such a state of being. Even man has never succeeded to be human forever. There's always a time to give way. What is the point to keep the earth, but yet to live must not live like wretched ones, but of authority and dignity. Watching the news, I begin to ask, what are we, the people, really missing of all of this going on with this present administrative? Learn of the deported criminals, the deported criminal migrants from the United States of America, from Venezuela. Wasn't new to me. It is obvious that we all are criminals. No one is perfect. We all have a weakness which we are working upon. We are all immigrants from the other side of the world and also guilty one way or the other. A criminal is one guilty of an action not acceptable. And we all know we come from that until today, still working on it. Some may say another has no right to point a finger at another. Then we fail ourselves of understanding what our forefathers were up to change our complicated ways by learning. Two wrongs never make it right. Even when you come to your awareness of your weakness, you should be seeking wellness. Deportation is not new to me. Even before I came to the United States of America, I had known about deportation. Remembering a story of one of my beloved relative who came home crying of being deported and their children in the USA while the relative was deported alone, left in the USA with the other parent and deported. Children need both parents, for sure. Lovers need each other, for sure. You can never divide a family, for sure. But what is our purpose? I felt sad, but I did not understand what it really meant until what happened to me after having children and facing a crisis, taken to the hospital. And I begin to realize that no one can ever claim to be able to sustain another when self is still an endeavor. I began to cry and weep for my children, even still in the USA, but deported by my own self, called citizen, but deported by my own self. Because we are in the USA does not mean we are not deported. Being in the right place at the right time is better. Venezuela is America. I begin to visualize this situation more of like being in your department of work. And being found in your friend's department when your department needs you. You need not be forced to your department, but with respect. If you know your mission on earth, you'll be doing right. I begin to feel guilty of not being able to even manage my own self and having children whom I have to care for and manage myself. With all the mind that I had, a dream, the American dream, after having children, might not have been in my plans yet, but I realized it was the popular plan, the regular plan. It was part of the plan of completing education, having a career, and having a family. But is this really what the law says? Is this really what the Constitution is asking? When the Constitution says one born in the USA is a citizen of USA, only meaning one born in the USA is a criminal in the USA. What is citizenship? Being born in a place of instability is crime. We all know the dangers of living in a place where there is no stability. We are all guilty. It's just the truth that is bitter. But how we work towards recovery is what matters. The conditions right now of solving the problem may be a little bit harsh, but it takes we adults to have been able to sort things out, especially of being a scholar, student of higher education, to educate background and families here and afar. Not failing, I must be trying to explain these things, even to our families back in Africa. The roots need the branches to be of effectiveness. When the branches are getting dry, they tell the trunk to report it to the roots. For more drinking. Sir Mike Pence, a liberal crusader, said the importers here pay the tariffs in the USA and not the foreign countries. I was shocked and I was like, really? But it's supposed to be otherwise. But even so, why are we having high tariffs? Penalty unto ourselves of failing the Constitution. It's a pride to be a good citizen, but it's a disgrace to be a failing citizen. There is no bad citizen, but a citizen failing to keep their pride and right, of not understanding the foreknowledge of our fathers, must be able to relearn, not only to know the Constitution, not only to memorize the Constitution, but to understand what they're really out for. This increase of tariffs, talking about broad-based unilateral tariffs, which are affecting work, families, and businesses. We are not proud of ourselves. Yet, solving the problem from the core while begging for comfort is important. But we shouldn't face our government like we have no brain. We should admit our fault and plead that the solutions and the activities around resolving the problem should not be too grievous. I understand that the United States expected this, but not to this state of complication. worrying about what if our allies, what if Canada and Mexico turn away and do marketing rather with China? That will be against us, America in general. They can't do that because we are Americans. It will be up to them to really justify themselves of how we can work about this, not rather quitting on us. I pray that doesn't come to happen because that will be against us, America in general. If they think USA is too hard to handle, then we must be able to understand USA being the heart of America. You cannot lose your heart, but you can give up on the alcohol of trying to keep a paradise without reaching enlightenment of the mind. It's not about making a bed and sleeping, but making the bed to rest while working. We must know the end goal of no more keeping an instability of being, but ascending of none left behind. This reminds us of what is happening between Ukraine and Russia. True, Russia should cease fire on Ukraine, but Ukraine cannot depart from Russia. They are one body. They're like the heart and the body. Because you are grown doesn't mean you part the house. You can never ignore your parents no matter how matured you've become. Even if you're richer than your parents, there is something in between you and your parent that must be kept. Temperance. Temperance. I read about 4 important women in the USA history that have really impacted me today. I learned about activist Sojourn Truth, Mama Isabel Van, born of the slavery, of mental slavery. We are, even white or black, a part of this enslavement. But here comes this woman, freeing herself from this mental slavery by encouraging, abolishing of this slavery, encouraging equality between male and female, standing for women's rights, standing for civil rights, which encourages us today, the young women, to be able to understand where they were going to with this equality and how can we really enable a steady equality, if not giving up on making children. And then I read about the women in history online and watched the video written by a video by Sir Mike Estring titled 25 Important Women in History. And those that captivated me was Mama Margaret Singer, biologically conceived 1879 to 1966, of her mental slavery they were trying to reverse herself from. Considered sexual activities with depleting women from being able to reach their expected of being. After going to school, the nursing field, she realized that pregnant women, especially in the places of low income living, were struggling. So she enforced the establishment of contraception to be allowed. Though had been in denial for a long time, she enabled the American Birth Control League to assist women to realize where our fault is coming from. Trying to maintain an stable and unstable place, home, only keeps us into the rich and the struggling. We cannot keep on being of low income. Even the rich are never mentally stable of being able to see another fellow of being, contrary to their expected standard of living. And then I read of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who held women press conferences, encouraging women to stand up for themselves and be effective beings of humanity and not depleting. Encouraging them not to be paralyzed with low income, but go higher standard and expect greater for themselves, being independent of achieving wealth. We cannot silence women trying to fight for inequality, yet we must know the core of the problem. After understanding activist Surgeon Truth and nurse Margaret Sanger and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, and worthy Lady Shirley Chisholm. Lady Shirley Chisholm served in the New York State Legislature, the first black to stand for presidency, for presidential campaigns, enabled the first national women political caucus, encouraging women to find themselves of higher rank. But how can we maintain it if we keep on depleting in the name of multiplying and making children? It's not about keeping descendants, it's about ascending. And ascension requires enlightenment perfect. Today, different agencies impacted with this disruption of cutting income from agencies and increasing tariffs, hurting weather emergency plans, public safety, weather fire costs, and weather forecasts disrupted, begins to question us. If the White House should be dismantled, are we able to be the white people? If the White House should be dismantled, are we able to be the enlightenment of expected? The true white people we desire to be, having the white skin, a tool to look up to and achieve that of the mind. We are all supposed to be white of the mind, enlightenment, perfect of the mind, achieving. We should be able to now reflect upon ourselves if we really match with the White House, being the people. Can we self-care when currency is our source of wealth, a source of oxygen? Can we really work without the government? Possible if we are not making children. We must be able to educate the young to be the best than we have been, to complete the mission of our ancestors. While we are healing from these bruises, let us be of enlightenment perfecting, of none left behind. Let's use this time to educate each other while assisting the government to become stable. We need peace of mind and not a battlefield. Thank you for listening. Peace steals the storm, back to peace that has no storm, holding on to perfect peace.